It was the night of August 13th, 2025, deep underground, in one of Ukraine's most secretive military bases. A command center hummed with quiet intensity. The air was dry, crisp, purified by advanced filtration systems. Screens flickered in the dim light, showing shifting maps, drone telemetry, and atmospheric data. On the central panel glowed an interactive map marked with 50 small green dots, each one a drone, slowly advancing toward Russia's border. The mission had been given the codename Operation Thin Shadow. Its target, the massive oil refinery in Volgograd, one of Russia's most critical energy facilities. The stakes could not be higher. No one raised their voice. The commander issued orders in calm, clipped tones. His control spanned 3 operational sectors: launch, guidance, and electronic warfare. Every operator moved with mechanical precision. There was no improvisation, no guesswork. Every step had been rehearsed, refined, and drilled to near automation. At exactly 0:30 Kiev time, the launch phase began. From 3 concealed sites across Ukraine's steppe, the first wave of UAVs lifted into the night sky. These were UJ-22 airborne drones, medium-class strike platforms painted in dark camouflage. They vanished into the black horizon within seconds, flying southeast toward their target. Behind them came the Beaver drones, decoys built to draw fire and overwhelm enemy radars. Then launched the third wave, Ram-2 UAVs, carrying electronic warfare packages capable of jamming both civilian and military communication channels. Minutes later, reconnaissance drones, Lelica 100 and PD-2, took off on separate trajectories, tasked with providing real-time visual feeds and coordinating adjustments if conditions changed. Within the bunker, their video would offer the commander eyes directly over Volgograd itself. As the first wave of drones moved deeper into Russian airspace, the operation's second phase came online: electronic warfare. The Ram-2 UAVs, flying slightly behind the strike formation, activated their powerful jamming systems. Civilian frequencies across the Volgograd region began to flicker with interference. Cell networks dropped, local radio broadcasts dissolved into static. More importantly, Russian military bands, those reserved for radar coordination and air defense batteries, suddenly filled with white noise. In their bunkers, Russian operators tried frantically to recalibrate. Radar screens flickered with ghost images, dozens of false targets, decoys deliberately designed to overload the system. The Beaver drones did their work, mimicking the signatures of larger aircraft and multiplying confusion. For every real UAV streaking toward the refinery, 3 or 4 ghost contacts now appeared on radar. From a Ukrainian command bunker, the feed was almost surgical. Operators watched as Russian air defense systems lit up the night sky, launching missile after missile, but most struck only decoys. The real strike group, the UJ-22s, kept low and steady, slipping through the gaps. Suddenly, one of the reconnaissance drones transmitted live video. The target area. The refinery sprawled across the horizon, an industrial giant with fuel tanks the size of apartment blocks and processing towers glowing under floodlights. Trucks were visible moving along service roads, and a handful of guards patrolled the perimeter. But no one suspected that within minutes the entire facility would be engulfed in fire. Inside a Ukrainian bunker, the commander gave the calm order: strike package on target. Commence attack. The countdown inside the command bunker hit 0. On the massive central display, 50 green dots converged toward their target. Each drone had its own programmed strike vector, its own fuel reserve calculated to the minute. Now came the culmination, the final 20 minutes of Operation Thin Shadow. At 2:14 local time, the first UJ-22 dive bombed from the east. Its warhead slammed into the outer wall of a storage reservoir filled with processed fuel. The explosion cracked the night open. A plume of flame burst skyward, rolling into a fireball so large it illuminated entire neighborhoods. Witnesses later said it looked as though the sun had risen early, but burning red. Within seconds, 3 more impacts followed. A cluster of missiles struck the central pumping station, tearing through thick pipes and igniting cascading rivers of oil. The ground shook, alarms screamed through the facility. Fire suppression systems tried to kick in, but were instantly overwhelmed. Then came the hammer blow. A wave of drones hit the refinery's primary distillation tower. This was the heart of the plant, a structure of steel that stretched dozens of meters into the air. The impact caused a chain reaction. Pressurized gases ignited, and the entire tower erupted in a column of flame. Chunks of molten metal rained down on nearby tanks, sparking new infernos. Russian security personnel, caught completely off guard, fired sporadically into the sky. Some tried to man anti-aircraft guns mounted on trucks, but electronic jamming blinded their targeting systems. Their tracers lit up the night in random directions, hitting nothing. Others fled, their silhouettes darting across the ground as wave after wave of explosions turned the facility into a war zone. From above, Ukrainian reconnaissance drones captured every detail. The refinery collapsing into a sea of fire, fuel depots detonating one by one, and a massive smoke column spiraling upward like a black tornado. These live feeds streamed directly into the command bunker in Ukraine, where officers watched in grim silence. The operation had been designed to last no more than 20 minutes inside Russian airspace. By minute 12, the objective was already accomplished. The refinery, a strategic asset that had fueled Russia's military operation for months, was annihilated, but the mission wasn't over. The final challenge was not the strike itself, but escaping the inevitable counterattack that would follow. Russian interceptors were scrambling, surface-to-air missile systems were mobilizing, and the chaos of the burning refinery masked new threats still emerging from the dark. For the Ukrainian operators, the most dangerous part of the mission had just begun. The drones had struck their targets, but Russian air defense networks were now fully awake, scanning frantically for anything still moving in the skies over Volgograd. Sirens wailed across the city. Anti-air missile systems, which had failed to stop the initial waves, launched hurried salvos into the night. The sky filled with twisting trails of fire, a desperate attempt to claw something down from the darkness. But the Ukrainian plan accounted for this. The decoy drones still circling the perimeter began transmitting powerful signals, appearing on Russian radars as full-sized aircraft. Commanders in Volgograd were overwhelmed with targets, unable to distinguish real threats from phantoms. Missile batteries wasted round after round chasing shadows. Meanwhile, the reconnaissance UAVs started their withdrawal, transmitting final images of the burning refinery before disappearing into low-altitude flight paths pre-programmed to slip between known radar gaps. The strike drones that had delivered their payloads did not return. They were built for one mission only, and they had completed it with devastating success. In the chaos, Russia scrambled fighter jets from nearby air bases. Pilots took off in the skies already lit by fire, ordered to hunt whatever remained. But confusion reigned. Some intercepted their own decoys, mistaking them for intruders. Others chased electronic ghosts generated by Ukrainian jamming. Coordination broke down as command channels remained flooded with static. On the ground, Volgograd authorities faced a nightmare. Fire brigades rushed toward the refinery, but the inferno was uncontrollable. Secondary explosions continued to detonate at random intervals. Fuel tanks rupturing, pipelines bursting, and smaller storage depots going up in flames. Columns of black smoke rose so high that they were visible on satellite imagery within the hour. Back in Ukraine's command bunker, the mission clock hit the 20-minute mark. Silence filled the room as operators confirmed that all objectives had been met and all data feeds had successfully returned. A low murmur rippled through the staff. Not cheers, but the restrained acknowledgement of a flawless operation. By dawn, the refinery was still burning. Russia's prized energy facility, which had supplied fuel not only to the military but also to export markets, had been reduced to a blazing ruin. And Ukraine had once again demonstrated a brutal truth. No matter how deep inside Russia, no target was untouchable. The destruction of the Volgograd refinery was not just another tactical strike. It was a strategic earthquake that rippled far beyond immediate flames. For Russia, oil is more than an energy source. It is the backbone of its war economy. Every drop fuels tanks, powers supply trucks, and fills the coffers of the state machinery that depends on exports to finance its invasion. With one facility annihilated in just 20 minutes, Ukraine sent a chilling message. Even Russia's industrial heartland is vulnerable. The Kremlin could no longer guarantee the safety of assets located hundreds of kilometers from the front. This shattered the perception of strategic depth that Moscow had relied upon for decades. Economic impact. The Volgograd plant was one of Russia's largest refineries, producing millions of tons of fuel annually. Its sudden loss forced emergency rerouting of supply lines. Civilian markets felt the shock as prices spiked. Military convoys faced shortages that rippled to the front lines. Repairing such a massive site would take not weeks, but months, and sourcing replacement equipment under sanctions added another impossible layer. Each day offline meant lost revenue and lost capacity, a drain on Moscow's already strained wartime economy. Military consequences. For the Russian army, the strike represented a direct hit on logistics. Fuel that had powered armored units in southern Ukraine suddenly had to be trucked from refineries further north, extending supply lines and exposing them to ambush. Convoys grew longer, slower, and more vulnerable. At the tactical level, this meant fewer offensive pushes, rationed mechanized movement, and growing pressure on already overextended brigades. Psychological fallout. In Moscow, perhaps the most devastating blow was psychological. The Kremlin has spent years projecting an image of invulnerability, of a state shielded by vast geography and layers of defense. Operation Thin Shadow ripped through that myth. The sight of Volgograd burning, shared on social media despite strict censorship, spread panic and anger. Ordinary Russians began asking questions. If Ukraine can hit Volgograd, what else can they reach? Are Moscow, St. Petersburg, and other industrial centers truly safe? Inside Putin's circle, the strike forced grim debates. Should more air defense systems be pulled back to protect critical infrastructure? Doing so would leave the front lines weaker. But leaving refineries and hubs exposed risked more catastrophic losses. For once, the Kremlin found itself cornered, forced to admit that it could not defend everywhere at once. A new phase of the war. For Ukraine, Operation Thin Shadow marked the dawn of a new doctrine, deep strike warfare that combines drones, electronic warfare, and precision timing to dismantle Russia's ability to fight. It was proof that Kiev's military had mastered the art of asymmetric warfare, hitting where it hurts most at a fraction of the cost of conventional campaigns. As the smoke over Volgograd finally began to clear, one truth remained undeniable. Ukraine had shown the world that 20 minutes was enough to paralyze a giant, and the shadow it cast was long, stretching all the way to the Kremlin walls.